and basing your campaign around them.
And the mission is about the people.
Fox 26 and the American Turkic Business Council welcome you to this debate of candidates hoping to represent Texas's 18th congressional district. CD 18, which represents Houston and some of the surrounding area, is a district driven through history by inspiring leaders, fighting for equity, inclusion, and against injustice. It's been led by leaders with long careers in public service. Tonight, two candidates square off in an effort to keep that legacy alive. They defeated a crowded field in the special election in November and now have their eyes set on a runoff win in January. Hello and welcome. I'm Greg Grugan, political reporter and host at Fox 26. Let's start with the introduction of our candidates. We have current Harris County Attorney Christian-Menefee. And his challenger, former at-large Houston City Council member, Amanda Edwards. She is also an attorney. Now, the candidates have drawn for the order in which they will answer questions. Each candidate will have exactly 1 minute to answer each question, with whoever answers first getting a 30-second rebuttal. We also have a few quickfire questions, which will require 30-second answers, but there will be no rebuttal. To begin, each candidate will get a 1-minute opening statement, and they will each also get a 1-minute closing statement. Now, we also ask that our candidates be respectful of our time cues and not talk over one another. We will be firm. I will interrupt you if you go over time. If you don't wrap up, we will simply turn off the microphone. I've worked with both of you before. I don't think we're going to have that problem. We also ask those who are in our audience to hold your applause until the very end so everyone can hear the candidates' responses. Now, on a personal note, through interviews and interactions, I have come to know and respect both of you as both talented and immensely dedicated public servants. Voters have a difficult choice to make, a decision-making process we hope this debate will help inform. So let's get started. Mr. Menefee, the first opening statement is yours.
Thank you, Greg, and good evening. I'm Christian Menefee, and I'm running for Congress because it was a thoughtful, a helpful, a compassionate government that gave me my fair shot at the American dream. I grew up in a working-class family that benefited from the WIC program, from free lunch in our public schools, from VA down payment assistance, from a Pell Grant, from the post-9/11 GI Bill, and from my parents' military health benefits, which fully funded my brother's bone marrow transplant, and he's been in remission from childhood cancer for more than 20 years. That type of government can allow anybody in this country to climb up the ladder and get their fair shake at the American dream. And that's what I want to do for people across this district. Right now, if you look at Washington, D.C., we have a president and a MAGA Republican majority in Congress that is trying to strip that away. They're cutting SNAP benefits. They're cutting access to Medicaid. They're cutting WIC. I want to make sure that every single person in our district has access to programs that are going to benefit them, that we're funding our small businesses, that people can pull themselves up and have a fair shot at the American dream. So I look forward to the conversation tonight. I'm Christian Menefee, and I'm happy to be running for Congress.
Ms. Edwards, your opening.
Thank you for having me. Good evening. My name is Amanda Edwards, and I'm the former at-large Houston City Council member now seeking to be the next Congresswoman for the 18th Congressional District. I was born, raised, and I still live in this 18th Congressional District. It's personal to me that we get it right. When I say get it right, I mean put someone in place who is willing to place people over politics. Put someone in place who has the experience, the bold vision, the skills, and the grit to achieve a bold path forward for our future. We are in the fight of a lifetime. And of course, we are seeing attacks against healthcare, economic stability, education in a way that we've never seen. And it was very personal to me growing up, learning and watching our U.S. healthcare system. And of course, when my dad was diagnosed with cancer, I learned firsthand that for so many Americans, having access to affordable care is in fact a matter of life and death. We need someone in this office who is going to put people over the politics and be able to deliver real results.
We begin with an issue I know is critical to both of you: retaining and vastly improving health care for folks in the 18th and all Texans. My question, as a congressional representative, what will you fight for, and what innovative ideas will you bring to the table? Mr. Menefee, you go first.
September 11, 2001, like so many other folks in schools across the country, I was sent home. And when I got back to my house, I was in the 8th grade, the house was empty, and it was completely silent. My parents weren't there, but there was vomit on the floor, and that's because my brother had relapsed with leukemia. He had been fighting cancer for multiple years, and during his time fighting cancer, I saw families in the hallway crying because they couldn't afford health care. I saw people who passed away because they did not have fair access to health care because they could not afford it. That's why I support Medicare for All, a single-payer health care system that ensures that not a single family in this country has to choose between putting food on the table and getting life-saving treatment. We should not have a health care system that props up profits and focuses on profits instead of patient outcomes. We should be ensuring not access to health care, not affordability of health care, but guaranteed health care for every single person in this country. You send me to Congress, I will fight for Medicare for all.
Ms. Edwards.
When I was 10 years old, my father was diagnosed with something called multiple myeloma, which is a very aggressive form of cancer that took his life when I was a teenager. I'll never forget asking my father what would happen if his life-saving treatments weren't covered by the insurance companies. And I'll never forget his answers. He would always just look at me and say, well, we just have to figure something else out. And I knew then, just like I know today, that was the wrong answer. And the right answer should have been that we have systems in place that save lives, systems in place that help keep families together like mine. And so when I think about the government shutdown that just took place because we were not willing to provide people affordable access to coverage, I know that that has to be our #1 priority in terms of the congressional work that lies ahead. I will be focusing on expanding access to coverage, making it more affordable, and ensuring that we put more emphasis in prevention and, of course, making sure that people are adequately insured.
Mr. Menefee, you have a 30-second rebuttal.
I also plan as best I can to address the maternal mortality crisis in this country. Black women, women of color are going to the hospital and they are having higher mortality rates than folks just like them who have a different skin color, and that's not right. I've experienced it personally in my family. That's why I would be a proud co-sponsor of the Omnibus Act, which is sponsored by several women in Congress, including Congresswoman Laura Underwood, but puts important funding into mental health programs, into community services, and into postpartum programs like the WIC program, and ensuring that folks have access to good treatment.
Our next question, equally important to you both, helping folks in the 18th prosper economically. How, as a member of Congress, will you work to attract good-paying employment, economic development, and a fair share for the citizens of Texas 18? Ms. Edwards, you go first.
While I was serving on city council, I remember hearing us talk about how Houston was the most diverse city in the nation. And one day I asked the question, what good is it to be the most diverse city in the nation if we're not solving the challenges that our diverse communities actually face? And in part, that is also tied to economic opportunity in our community. We need someone in place who is going to make it her priority to create equitable outcomes for our small businesses. When you look at lending and access to capital, and the ability for small businesses in our community to scale their businesses, you find that women and minority small business owners often lack access to that capital and the ability to scale. We need dollars to be shifted into the hands of things called CDFIs, Community Development Financial Institutions, that will lend at greater rates to those businesses of color that often get rejected by those traditional banking institutions. In addition to that, having that vision, we also need to make sure that we're putting into place new job opportunities for the 18th Congressional District as well.
Mr. Menefee.
I remember being a high school student and applying to jobs across Houston and not being able to find work anywhere. And ultimately, I was hired by a grocery store where I pushed carts and I bagged groceries, and I was able to work myself up. But we see the situation is a little bit different now, because right now, had I been working there for 2 years, I was making about $7.50 an hour. But people in our country right now are making less than that, because the minimum wage is still less than $7.50. I want to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour to get people on a track to be able to take care of their family. But we also also need to increase the number of workforce development programs. Right now, we're telling all our kids, you got two options. You either go to college or you potentially be unsuccessful in life. We have all these skilled trade jobs like electricians, like plumbers, like folks who work in construction. If we can pair those industries with our high schools, with our community colleges, we can put kids on track to work the types of jobs where if you work in them for 10 or 15 years, you can make a great sum of money and you can have your shot at the American dream. I want to increase the number of workforce development programs because we have such a robust job market here in Houston. We just need to connect it to our young people.
Ms. Edwards, 30-second rebuttal.
Yes, I would also say, in addition to making sure that we are providing pathways for ownership and small businesses to have the opportunity to scale and thrive, we also want to increase jobs. Apprenticeship programs are critical to that. In addition to that, we want to make sure that those jobs that we do put into our community are going to pay sustainable wages. It does you no good to have jobs that don't provide you the ability to support your family and build a community, and that's what I'm committed to doing as the next Congresswoman in the 18th Congressional District.
Being safe and enjoying equal and just treatment under the law, two fundamental American rights important to both of you. As a member of Congress, how will you collaborate with law enforcement and deliver on initiatives to make the 18th a safer and more secure environment for families and businesses? Mr. Menefee, you go first.
It's about ensuring that our police officers are in a position to tackle violent crime while we also address the issues that lead to crime. My uncle was shot in the head when I was in law school, and he battled addiction year after year after that and ultimately passed away from a drug overdose. We see that when people are victim of violent crimes, it can have a huge impact on their life. That's why I want to reimagine how we approach the issue and make it so that police officers are in the best position possible to prevent, deter, and solve violent crimes. That means increasing the number of mental health professionals in our communities so that they can handle issues that are not violent crime. That means increasing our funding into youth programs so that we can address kids before they get into the criminal justice system. And it means passing bills that will ensure that we have violence interrupters who can go into our communities and address some of these issues so that we're not expecting police officers to have 4 different jobs, even though they're just trained to be in law enforcement. So it's about ensuring that our communities are safe and ensuring that we're not putting too much on officers, and that leads to more instances of excessive force and violence throughout our communities.
Ms. Edwards.
Just a few months ago, something known as a Big Beautiful Bill passed, and in it, it cut $900 billion from Medicaid, $300 billion from SNAP. It told people who sought graduate student loans that they would be capped at what they could receive. We have got to make sure that we're not creating conditions that make it ripe for crime, and instead invest in our communities and neighborhoods to make them safe. Investing in ways like providing resources to our cities for community policing, making sure that we're providing access to grant funding to our communities so that they can continue to do prevention and keep our residents safe.
Mr. Menefee, 30-second rebuttal.
Ensuring community safety also means addressing the instances of police brutality we've seen throughout our communities. I would proudly vote for the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act so that we can have a national database of law enforcement officials who have crossed the line and brought harm to our communities, so that we can ban chokeholds and so that we can assure that folks have fair access to get economic justice when they file a lawsuit after they've been the victim of excessive force.
Our next question. The shortage of decent, affordable housing is a national challenge, and one that I know both of you are worried about. In regard to the 18th, how will you work in Congress to both bring new affordable units to the 18th, as well as resources to improve aging and fragile homes already there? Ms. Edwards, you go first.
As a city council member, something known as Harvey struck, and I learned firsthand the disconnect that people had when it came to getting housing solutions in our community, particularly in the aftermath of a storm. I propose that we put forward the resources that would enable us to create housing solution centers that would enable people to navigate through case management services on the federal, state, and local level to find housing solutions rather than housing rejections when it comes to federal programs and services. In addition, we've got to make sure that more CDBG dollars, which are used for affordable housing, are in fact put into place and are used for affordable housing. While I served on the National League of Cities Board of Directors, I helped to fight back against cuts of CDBG dollars. And one of the things I think is a tool we can use is to tie those CDBG dollars to making sure that the affordable housing disparity that exists in Houston is now reduced. Make those dollars attached to the reduction of that disparity.
Mr. Menefee.
People are expecting their member of Congress to be a fighter on this issue, and I will fight because I've experienced it myself. When I was growing up, we lived in apartments and military housing, and I would have never moved into the first home that we owned were it not for VA down payment assistance that allowed my parents to just put $500 down, and that's how we got our first house. When I go to Congress, I plan to fight for down payment assistance so that first-time home buyers and other folks can get money in their pocket so that they can put it directly on their down payment. But it's also about going after corporate landlords, which ravage our communities and ensure that gentrification hits every single one of our neighborhoods. And I've done that work as the Harris County attorney. We've gone after developers who have tried to short shrift us when they're required to build affordable housing. We've gone after folks who have tried to steal homes out from under black and brown folks in underserved communities. You send me to Congress, I will continue to fight on these issues just as vigorously as I did during my time as Harris County attorney.
Ms. Edwards, 30 seconds.
One of the things I think is critically important when we think about the city of Houston in particular is that we don't have a comprehensive housing plan. And one of the things that I think you can tie those CDBG dollars that I referenced earlier to is to create a housing plan that is comprehensive, that reduces those disparities in affordable housing. We truly have an affordable housing crisis in our community where what people can afford is not what they have access to. And so until we start putting our money where our mouth is, those are going to continue to be disparities that persist.
I begin with the adage, what is done is done. The hard fact is there are millions of people living in the United States without permission. My question to the candidates, how should America proceed when it comes to the undocumented currently within our borders? Mr. Menefee, you first.
With compassion and dignity, because so many folks throughout our communities, especially here in Houston, have loved ones who are close to them who are undocumented. I have a close family member who came to this country underage. He didn't ask to be brought here, but he's done every single thing that was asked of him. Went to high school, went to college, got a job, never got in any trouble. And recently he was the victim of a road rage incident. But he wouldn't go to the police. He wouldn't go to the hospital because he was fearful that in Donald Trump's America, he would be snatched up by a mass ICE agent and taken back overseas. That's not how our immigration policy should work. We should be in a country that fully funds our asylum system so that folks who are seeking asylum can have their answer quickly, and we're not having a logjam in our court system. We should have a real pathway for dreamers and for folks who have been over here for a good amount of time and have stayed out of trouble. We should address the issues that face mixed-use families and other people who are in this country who are abiding by the law. I believe in treating folks with compassion and dignity. That's how we should approach the immigration issues in this country, but it's going to take a bipartisan effort to do so. We cannot run away from the problem. I have never run away from problems. I will be that way in Congress.
Ms. Edwards, 1 minute.
Houston is home to a place where 142 languages are spoken here. It is a wonderfully diverse, welcoming community, and it's something that is a pride of our community. We need to make sure that when we think about the issue of immigration, we are thinking about this issue in a holistic, comprehensive, and humanitarian way. And that way includes creating pathways for citizenship for the hardworking people who live here and contribute to our society. That also includes taking a step back and figuring out why on earth are the lines as long as they are in the first place. By revisiting the quotas, looking at that, it's long overdue because we have failed to embrace and embark upon comprehensive immigration reform. Finally, of course, we want to keep borders safe, but not in the ways that in which we are now attacking families and victimizing people who have been here contributing to our community for many years. We have to do better, and it starts with being serious about governance and policy rather than politics.
Mr. Menefee, 30 seconds.
Residents know that they can trust what I'm telling you about my positions about immigration because it's exactly the positions that I've had during my time as Harris County Attorney. I'm proud that at the county we set up an Immigration Legal Services Fund, which helps folks who are dealing with issues with immigration, only to be sued by the Texas Attorney General, and I'm defending that lawsuit right now. I am proud that we sued Donald Trump over his ban on birthright citizenship, taking up the important fights time and time again. You know that I will fight for you in Congress because I have fought for you as Harris County Attorney. They're not just campaign slogans. They are real things that I've done, and I'll continue to be that way in Congress.
Okay, candidates, now to the first of our quick-fire questions. 30 seconds each, no rebuttal. Okay? Do you support full federal legalization of marijuana and THC products, or should the issue be left to individual states? Ms. Edwards first.
I do believe that we should be supportive of that. I think Texas, for example, has been lagging behind with regard to that issue. And so, yes, I would be in support.
Mr. Menefee.
Yes, marijuana is nowhere near as dangerous as alcohol, and people consume that every single day. A thoughtful government should be able to regulate these types of things and ensure that our communities are protected and that we're able to bring in the revenue so that it's not being sold illegally. Yes.
Okay, quick fire question number 2. As a member of Congress, would you support or oppose appropriating the enormous federal funds necessary to forgive the lion's share of student debt carried by Americans? Mr. Menefee first.
Yes, and in fact, I've taken direct action as the Harris County Attorney to make sure that that happened. I filed a brief in the case that folks filed to stop President Joe Biden from his student loan forgiveness program. I came out of law school with $200,000 in debt. I can guarantee you I didn't have $200,000 worth of education. I don't believe that anyone should be saddled by student loan debt or medical debt and to drive them into bankruptcy. Yes, absolutely.
Ms. Edwards.
By the time students actually finish their education, they are saddled with so much debt that they have the equivalent of a mortgage and yet have not bought a home to begin with. We have got to be better and serious about this issue. Absolutely, yes.
An outstanding half hour of debate. We have a lot more questions for your Texas 18 candidates right after this short break. And don't forget to weigh in on which issues mean the most to you by voting in our Fox 26 poll. See you in a second. Welcome back to our Texas 18 congressional runoff debate. Candidates, let's get right into it. Young people in the 18th and across the nation are struggling to find sustainable employment. As a member of Congress, how would you seek to address this specific concern? Amanda Edwards, you are first.
Well, first of all, I want to make sure that we understand that we have to make sure that every level is prepared for the workforce of tomorrow, and it starts with education. Right now, we see education being used as a political chip in a game, and it comes down to people being underfunded when it comes to our public education, and then, of course, our higher education spaces and places are now becoming more unaffordable for people. We want to make sure that they're prepared for the workforce. In addition to that, when I served on City Council, one of the things that I also was very vigorous in working on was making sure that we had support for our startups, entrepreneurs that also wanted to run small businesses. And so startup support means venture capital investment. That also means putting into place opportunities for people to have that pedagogy while they are being educated so that they can become entrepreneurs that are supported. So in addition to the traditional workplace, we've got to look at ways in which people can become entrepreneurs, they can create and manifest their own destiny, and that do so economically.
Mr. Menefee, 1 minute.
We have to use what we got right here in the city of Houston. We have a massive port. We are the energy capital of the world. We have rail. We have a massive constructive industry. That means that we have to position our young people to go into those industries. And that's exactly what I've helped do as county attorney. We brought in millions of federal dollars and created an apprenticeship program for folks in the public entertainment, in the transportation, in the construction arenas, so that they can get into these jobs as young people, learn while they're paid, and then eventually work their way up to make even more money. That's why I support wholeheartedly expanding Pell Grants in this country so that it's not just used for college, but it can also be used for training and workforce development programs. And it's about directly linking those industries with our high schools and our community colleges so that kids can get into those programs when they're young, work their way up, and ultimately be successful.
Amanda Edwards, 30 seconds.
In addition to that, I would also say that advanced manufacturing is a space and place, too, that is underutilized, but something that is a backbone of our Houston economy. And so when we're talking about access to opportunity, also making sure that people have awareness of the types of jobs that will pay them sustainable wages and, of course, be a part of the future economy that will exist here.
All right, our next question. For the first time in our nation's history, Americans will spend $1 trillion tax dollars to support the world's most powerful military. Question, are we as a nation investing too much in defense and military might with so many domestic challenges unaddressed? Christian, I know your dad's a proud member of the Coast Guard. I'm interested to hear your 1 minute response here.
The answer is yes. In the United States, we spend about $1 trillion in our Department of Defense, 3 times the next closest country. Yet if you look across communities in the 5th Ward, we're kicking people off of SNAP benefits. We're kicking people off of Medicaid. There's no reason why we should be pouring all of our money into the military in that way, and we can't even solve domestic issues. But this is not just a Democratic belief. Republicans believe this as well. In fact, you've seen the head of the Department of Defense say so himself, because there are a number of inefficiencies in our military with overspending, spending on legacy systems instead of dynamic, smart software that's going to prepare us for the future. Look, I believe that our military spending should reflect ensuring that we have economic stability, ensuring that we remain a safe nation, that our allies are taken care of, but we should not just pour money blindly into the military. That is a bipartisan agreement, and so it's going to be up to us in Congress to do the work necessary to make sure that we are efficiently spending so that we can take care of our people here at home.
Amanda Edwards.
This is one of those examples of an instance where you've got to walk and chew gum. We have got to make sure that we're making strategic investments so that our nation remains safe, but at the very same time, we've got to make the strategic investments so that we are safe on the home front. And one of those means making sure our domestic policy is prioritized. When we pass something known as a big, beautiful bill, I go back to that because it did cut $900 billion in Medicaid and $300 billion from SNAP. What it did was take away the social safety nets of the communities that needed the most. We have to be in the business of providing the support, providing people with the opportunity so that each and every single person in our community has the opportunity not just to get by day to day, but we need them to thrive each and every single day. So while we need them to thrive, we certainly need to prioritize investing in them instead of taking those dollars and putting them into just military spending. In that big, beautiful bill, we saw a transfer of money going into that type of spending rather than taking care of our domestic policy and support.
Mr. Menefee, 30 seconds.
Our military spending and our spending abroad should be about making sure that we're more safe. But we have seen from both the President and our Secretary of Defense that that is not what they're interested in. When you cut programs like USAID, when you cut that funding, you don't make our country more safe. When you have extrajudicial killings in Venezuela, you do not make our country more safe. We've seen a lot of talk from the Secretary of Defense, but under his tenure, military spending is still up. If folks want to be fiscal conservatives and talk about smart spending in our government, it should apply all across the government. If we're snatching dollars back, it should not be from the mouths of families in Fifth Ward. It should be from the military.
Okay, I think we can all agree the environment on Capitol Hill is as thoroughly, and some would say destructively divided along partisan lines than it's ever been. Much has been said about the need for a fighter from Texas 18, but the question I present is this: will you collaborate with Republicans, and if so, to what degree? Ms. Edwards, you're first.
Well, I've always spent my entire career fighting for the people and delivering results. When it came to housing, when it came to infrastructure investment, when it came to disaster relief. And I will do the exact same thing as the next Congresswoman for this 18th Congressional District. I have not met a single Republican or a single Democrat that likes to flood. And so when I think about opportunities for bipartisan support and collaboration and governance that actually is functional, I think of ways in which we can invest in our community when it comes to infrastructure, when it comes to having a disaster recovery system that actually works for people as opposed to just leaving them to their own devices. These are spaces and places that help to save lives, to create a more vibrant, resilient community, and of course, give us an opportunity to work together and finally be effective during this toxic gridlock of Washington, D.C.
Mr. Menefee.
Yes, I will collaborate with Republicans, but my job as a member of Congress is to do what is in the best interest of the people I serve in the 18th Congressional District in that moment. And some days that's going to be the fight, and I've done that as Harris County attorney. When the Attorney General came down here and tried to get more than 2,000 legally cast ballots thrown out, I fought him in court. We won. Every single vote was counted. When the President of the United States cut health care programs, $20 million in Harris County, I fought him in court. We won, and every single dollar was restored. So there are days where fighting is appropriate, but there are also days where you got to work together. Like I worked with a Republican county commissioner to ensure that a landfill was not more deeply expanded into a black neighborhood on the northwest side of town. Or when the Attorney General and I, Attorney General who shall not be named, worked together to go after cigarette companies when they tried to get our kids hooked on vaping. It's about being able to balance the job and understand that some days you got to throw a punch in order to protect the communities that you serve. And other days, it doesn't matter if the person is blue, red, black, white, orange. If they can help you bring resources to your community, you should be working with them.
Ms. Edwards, a 30-second rebuttal.
I was on council when the 51 inches of rainfall hit our community known as Harvey. And one thing that is very clear to me, that it is critical that we put someone in place that knows how to bring the resources home to this community, particularly investment in infrastructure funding. You know, we can't stop the rain from falling, but we certainly can be prepared to catch it when it does. And having someone who has a background in public finance that knows how to bring public dollars to public projects, having someone who has brought and secured resources on direct allocation basis to our community in need is exactly what we need out of our next Congresswoman.
A good segue for our next question. Both of you grew up on the Texas coast. Both of you have lived through the destructive storms which have hammered Texas 18 and just about all of the greater Houston area. Question: as a member of Congress, what do you intend to do to make Texas 18 better prepared and more resilient to floodwater and high wind? Mr. Menefee, you go first.
I think about a friend I had from college who the love of his life was driving during one of the storms, got caught in her car and ultimately drowned. And that story is not unique to me or anyone else. That's a story that just about everybody in this town either has experienced or knows someone who has experienced. There's a trauma that exists when you grow up in the Gulf Coast and we see 500-year storm after storm. And so to have the Texas General Land Office, when Hurricane Harvey dollars were being sent to this region, to have them give out of $1 billion, the city of Houston and Harris County, a whopping $0 was a slap in the face. That's why I teamed up with folks at the county and we got that zero increase to $750 million. But we have to do a few things. We have to save FEMA. Our president right now is talking about disbanding FEMA, sending those resources to a different federal agency, which is going to hurt our communities. We have to ensure that we are widening our bayous and doing more stormwater detention and retention so that the floodwaters have a place to go. It's about being a thoughtful partner at the federal government. I'll work to bring federal resources down to work with the county and the city to get programs actually done to protect us against the next storm.
Amanda Edwards.
When Harvey hit, I remember having to visit a home of a senior citizen named Miss Moore, and I nearly fell through the floor of her home because it had had such damage. Yet she had been arbitrarily denied by FEMA resources that she needed to get back on her feet. It took a New York Times article being written about her story for us to be able to secure the resources that she rightfully deserved. That cannot be disaster recovery in our country, and in fact, it is severely broken. So not only should we fight back against Trump's attacks on FEMA in terms of trying to underfund it, but also we need to overhaul disaster recovery so that it actually works for people. By the time you know the policy in place, you would have already spent your life savings. We need to expedite the policy making. We need to make the resources direct allocations, and I've done that as a city council member. We secured $1.3 billion to come in the initial tranche of funding from CDBG disaster recovery dollars, and you need someone who will be ready on day one to do the same.
Mr. Menefee, you have 30 seconds.
We also have to deal with the insurance issue. There are so many insurance companies right now who are refusing to underwrite folks in the Gulf Coast because of the many, many storms that we've seen. That is leaving people priced out, unable to get a house, unable to get insurance, and the next storm could come and the wind could cause them financial ruin. I want to expand the NFIP so that it applies to wind damage as well, expand the amount of money that we put into it so that we can protect people here in the Gulf Coast who aren't having access to home insurance.
Okay. You are both skilled practitioners of the law. Over the past 11 months, many of your fellow Democrats have protested an erosion of constitutional protections and what one commentator called the initiation of soft authoritarianism. Question: what concerns you most about what's unfolded, and what, as a member of Congress, do you intend to do about it? Ms. Edwards.
You know, there is something known as Project 2025 that has been the guidepost of the Trump administration's actions and activities. And, you know, one of the things that has been most striking, and never in my lifetime have I seen a president that has fought against the rule of law, not regarded the separation of powers in the way that this president has. We need to put into place a plan that allows us to fight back. So, yes, it's important for us to secure the majority so that we can set the legislative agenda, but in addition to that, we have to make sure that we're fighting back through the courts as well. The overreach through the executive orders that you see, we need to support organizations and fund them that fight back against what is happening with the Trump administration. Even in the example of the racial gerrymandered maps, which of course we now just saw today, the U.S. Supreme Court just upheld for the 2026 midterms. We need to be supporting those organizations who are litigating these matters and fight back. What our president is doing is wrong, and we must stop now.
Mr. Menefee.
We have a president who is stepping outside of the Constitution, our laws, and all norms. This is a president who has laid off hundreds of thousands of federal workers, a president who is deporting U.S. citizens who are going to prisons abroad and being tortured, a president who is sending mass ICE agents out into our communities, into schools, into places of worship to torment people. I've been clear since I first got into this race that one of the reasons I'm going to Washington, D.C. is to fight back against Donald Trump. And I've done that right here as the Harris County attorney. When Trump and Elon Musk laid off hundreds of thousands of federal workers, I teamed up with the National AFL-CIO. We filed a lawsuit, and we were able to delay those layoffs by multiple months. As a member of Congress, you have multiple tools that you can use. I want to serve on the Oversight Committee so that they can investigate the hell out of President Trump for the many, many things that he is doing. But we also have a Judiciary Committee, and we know that if Democrats win the House back, you can expect impeachment hearings to happen. If those hearings do happen, if I'm on the Oversight Committee, you can trust that I will be in a position to immediately be impactful. The same way I've been as Harris County attorney, I'll be as a member of Congress.
Amanda Edwards, 30 seconds.
The other thing I will say that we must do in this process is continue to stay vigilant in terms of keeping our community engaged. One of the approaches and strategies that the Trump administration has utilized is to overwhelm us so that people can then disengage and stop participating in the process. We have got to get people to turn out and vote, participate, make their voice heard, and then, of course, when electing people to office, put folks in place like me who have a track record of delivering results, because we cannot afford for people to stay home and be non-voters in this cycle.
Okay, candidates, we are back to our quick fire questions. And because of your discipline and efficiency, you get the bonus of additional time. We will each have 45 seconds for these responses. And our first question: would you support or oppose expanding the number of justices appointed to our nation's Supreme Court? Ms. Edwards.
That's a difficult question, but I believe that we should keep the number of justices intact. The pendulum does swing in the opposite direction, although this is a challenging time, and certainly can see why that argument is made to expand the number of justices.
Mr. Menefee.
Support. The Supreme Court has lost its mind. This is a body where they have targeted community after community, rolling back Roe v. Wade, abortion protections that existed for more than 50 years in this country, targeting people across our communities and hiding behind the rule of law when they do so, when they are obviously just participating in judicial activism with a lifetime appointment in order to do so. We saw how they just stripped away representation from Fifth Ward, from Acres Homes, from other communities that I love to serve. And I'm telling you right now, if I'm in Congress, I will support expanding the number of justices on the Supreme Court and putting other measures in place to hold these folks accountable.
Okay, our next quick-fire question. Would you support or oppose amnesty and a path to citizenship for all non-criminal, undocumented people currently residing in the United States? Mr. Menefee, you go first.
Yes, if they've been in the United States for a minimum number of years. I think if we set the minimum number at 7 years or 10 years, you are able to build a term of goodwill where they have showed that they are participants in our economy, that they are following the rules, and that they are adding to our. There are so many immigrants across our communities who meet that exact definition. Folks who own small businesses and employ other people. Folks who do their job every day and take care of their family. I absolutely would support in showing that those folks have amnesty, have a real path to citizenship in this country.
Amanda Edwards.
I got a call from a panicked neighbor of someone who was taken away after dinner from their family, snatched away without their medication, and their family not knowing what to do. They had been in this country, contributing, working, being a part of the fabric known as Houston. And so we have got to be in the business of thinking about families just like that one and finding ways that they can have pathways to citizenship. So yes, I would be supportive of that. There are too many hardworking individuals and community members that add value to our community that ought to be protected rather than attacked.
Okay, another quick fire. If elected, and you were allowed to choose your first congressional committee assignment based on maximum efficacy for District 18, what would it be? Amanda Edwards first.
Well, first, of course, in keeping with the tradition of this district, the judiciary is critically important. I'm an attorney. I believe in the importance of that committee in upholding the rule of law, and so that would be one. I would also add to that transportation and infrastructure. We have got to, of course, appreciate the expanding nature of our region. We are going to be adding, in the course of the next 20 years, another 4 million people coming into our 8-county region, and we need to be prepared for that growth. That means we need to be making investments in multimodal transit options. That means we need to be making investments in our infrastructure when it comes to drainage and resiliency. That means we need to be prepared when it comes to making sure that we have the channels that our community needs in order to mitigate the flooding that we are prone to.
Mr. Menefee?
Homeland Security. When I was 13 years old, my father and I were traveling back home from a church lock-in, and there was a flood going on at the time. Water rushed into the car, and because my father had 28 years in the military and the Coast Guard, he knew how to get us out of that vehicle, so we weren't trapped and we survived. But we live with that trauma every single day, and so many folks across our communities live with that exact same trauma. I believe that floods and disasters are the #1 issue that we face out here in our region. So I would like to serve on the Committee for Homeland Security to ensure that I'm doing every single thing I can to get disaster recovery dollars here as quickly as possible, in the same way that the late Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee did for so many years.
Okay, candidates, our final quick-fire query is a symbolic and I believe important one. Candidates, if you could ask Barbara Jordan one question about this critical job, what would it be? Mr. Menefee, you go first. Take a deep breath. I'm not sure what I would say.
Did you know what you were getting into? Early in the Congresswoman's career, there was a hearing in the House Judiciary Committee. They were investigating a break-in at a local hotel in Washington, D.C. The committee chairman called to the lectern the 18th Congressional District member of Texas, Barbara Jordan. She gave one of the most phenomenal speeches you will ever hear in politics. One of the things she said is, "I will not sit idly by to the subversion, to the diminution, to the destruction of our Constitution." You fast forward, and her speech is in the annals of history as leading to the resignation of President Richard Nixon for the Watergate scandal. Now, Richard Nixon was corrupt, but his actions pale in comparison to what we've seen from Donald Trump. So for someone who was right there, center stage, in one of the biggest moments in American history, whose hand did not waver, I would ask her, did you already know what you were getting into?
Amanda Edwards, what would your question for the great Barbara Jordan be?
You know, one of the things that we champion and remember most about the late legendary Barbara Jordan is her ability to be a powerful orator and speaker and leader. But the other part that I think that does not get discussed is her ability to govern and compromise. And that is, of course, a lost art. And I would ask her the question, how is it at this stage in the toxic environment of our politics would you recommend we start governing again and focusing on getting things done for our communities? I think she was extremely well known for her work in terms of the public speaking that she did and the work that she did in the committee, but she also was very skilled and talented at getting people with divergent viewpoints to see her point of view and to come around and get things done. And I want to know from her how to do this in that environment, in this environment.
Okay, we're completely finished with the question and answer portion. Each candidate will now, I'm told, get to really stretch their legs with a 2.5-minute close to make their pitch for why the voters in 18 should cast their ballot for one of you. The order was drawn randomly. Mr. Menefee, you go first.
Thank you very much, Greg, and thank you to Fox 26 for hosting this tonight. Look, I'm Christian Menefee. I've been your county attorney for the past 4 years, and I ran for Congress because government helped me get to where I am today, and I want that for so many other kids who are growing up out there. When I was growing up, there were many nights I would not have eaten were it not for the WIC program. Many days I would have been at school on an empty stomach were it not for free lunch in our public schools. My parents would have never purchased their first home were it not for VA down payment assistance that let them buy their first house when I was in high school. I would have never went to college without a Pell Grant, never went to law school without the post-9/11 GI Bill, and my brother would have died from cancer were it not for my parents' Medicare and TRICARE, which paired together ensured that he got the treatment that he needed. That's how you take a family like mine, which sent more people to prison than to college, to me being the youngest person and the first African-American elected Harris County attorney. When I look at Washington, D.C., and I look into the eyes of my two sons, I see a Congress and a president that are intent on stripping away that opportunity from the next generation. I see them cutting SNAP benefits. I see them making it more difficult to access health care. I see them doing every single thing they can to help billionaires in the wealthy class, but not the average Joe and Jane who are trying to get their shake out here. And I knew I had to do something about it. As a county attorney, I've been well equipped to fight back against those exact things. Time and time again, I'm the president, I've taken on Governor Abbott, I've taken on Kim Paxton, and I have fought and delivered real results. We have turned the office, the county attorney's office, into a place that advocates for people, that ensures that when people's homes are stolen out from under them, they're able to get it back. To make sure that our seniors know about estate planning, because 70% of African Americans and Latinos in this country die without a will. A place that really pours into the youth through our Summer Legal Academy, which builds young people up to one day go to law school. I'm running to take that same vigor, that same love for the middle class, that same desire to make sure that everybody can succeed in this country to Congress. I ask for your vote and for your support, and I'm very thankful to you all for being here tonight.
Ms. Edwards, 2.5 minutes.
Thank you again for having us. I'm Amanda Edwards, and I'm a former at-large Houston City Council member. I was born, raised, and I still live in the 18th Congressional District. It is deeply personal to me that we get this right. And when I say get it right, I mean pick someone into place that is from the community, of the community, and will work for the community. I have spent my entire lifetime working for and delivering results for our community. When it came to having access to education, I was a proud graduate of Eisenhower High School in the Aldine Public School District, and eventually made my way to Harvard Law School. And then, of course, had the opportunity to work in the 18th Congressional District office under Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. It's critically important that we put someone in this space that has the experience, that has the vision, that has the skills and the grit to deliver for our community. When I came back home to Houston, I practiced law as a public finance attorney, which means that I was bringing public resources to public projects. So on day one, I will be ready to bring home that bacon to this community. But in addition to that, I served as one of your at-large Houston City Council members, where I was able to roll up my sleeves and get to work when it came to disaster recovery firsthand. I was in the trenches. I was out in the field. I was rebuilding homes when it came to some of the worst disaster our community has ever seen. I have been on the ground doing the work when it comes to accessing housing, creating economic opportunity, and, of course, creating an economy of the future. While I served on City Council, I learned that Houston was ranked number 42 in venture capital investment, and that meant we couldn't keep a startup here to save our lives. So I got to work, put together a task force, we explored what could be done, and came up with the creation of many strategies and recommendations, including the Innovation District anchored by the ION, and of course increased venture capital investment in our community by tenfold. We need somebody in place that has a vision but can execute on that vision. In addition, we need somebody who is going to be working alongside that community, not just coming around during campaign season, but doing the work time and time again and restoring confidence that it will matter as a result of their vote, who's in office or not. And that is me as the next Congresswoman.
Okay, Fox 26 and our partners with the American Turkic Business Council, thank you for joining us this evening. You can watch any portion of the debate again on our Fox Local app. And remember, runoff election day is set for Saturday, January 31st. Good night and be well.